Hello guys, I'm going to be talking about what really happened when we write int x in C programming language. So I'm going to be writing that int x, and we have sharp x. This x can actually be anything, so it's not a must that we use x. Float x, and double x. So this what do we mean by this? What happens when we write something like this? What actually happens? So now I'm going to open my VS Code and I'm going to type this exactly, and we're going to check what really happens. So now this is my VS Code. I'm going to be running this, and let's see what happens if we write int x. What actually happens? So let's try that. Now the value is giving me is 238033808. So I'm going to run the code again, and let's see what happens. Now I keep getting different values. So the values is not defined, which means that the value of x is not fixed, which is undefined behavior. So this what actually means. It means x does not have one value and the value keep changing. So this is not defined. So what happens if I write something like this? Let's see what happens. And let's see if there is going to be some changes. Now the value of x is 5. So this is what happens, and I'm going to be explaining this. This is what we call variable initialization, and I'm going to be explaining this. So I'm just trying to show you guys that if we write int x without putting values, without initialization, this actually means variable declaration. So what we just did here, we only declared the variable. We did not initialize this variable. And what we did here is what we call variable initialization. So the first one, we did not initialize, so we only declared. That's why we keep getting different values. And here we initialize this variable, so now this variable actually hold a value, and that's why we able to get the value of x. So now you guys have seen what happens, that we keep getting different values. That's what we call undefined behavior, when we don't really know the value of x. So those values are not defined, they don't have meaning, they're not stable. You guys see that when I keep printing them, we keep seeing different results. So that's what we call undefined value. And what we actually do here, this is what we always call variable declaration. So I'm going to explain this. This is variable declaration. So every time you write something like this, int x, char x, float x, these are variable declaration. And if you look at this, we see that each time we want to declare this variable, we always write the data type first. This is the data type, which is integer. So this tells us that this variable x is integer. So it gives us clue of what this variable is, and that's the same thing that happens when compilers see this kind of code. So here, this data type. So this is data type. What I mean is that this is actually, this int is data type, and this x is variable. So that's the name of the variable, and in my last video I explained what variable is, so that is not an issue. But when you write both of them like this is what we call variable declaration. Variable declaration. So I'm going to write that variable declaration. Variable declaration. So variable declaration, and what does that mean? That actually means you trying to book a space in the memory. That's what it means when you're trying to reserve a space in the memory. That's what variable declaration is. So when you write something like this, you're trying to tell the compiler that I'm going to need a space. A space. So let's say this is the memory, and I've explained this in my last video that memory is just like a piece, a large area of land, and you're trying to build something. So you're trying to tell the compiler that I need a space where I can store numbers, a space that actually allows storage of numbers. So it's going to go over to the memory and look for the area where storing numbers is actually allowed. So it's going to name it. So here is the name of the variable. So it's going to give you a name x. So this is the name of the space. So now what is actually in that space we don't know. We don't know what is there. So let's say you buy land and you get your own portion, and you've not built anything on that land, and you just give it a name. This land, you give it a name x. This is the name of the land x. That means there's nothing on that land. So that does not mean that land is actually empty. It's not empty the same way memory behaves. So even if you just initialize a variable, and most people they think memory is empty, it's not empty. So the land, you can actually have a lot of trees, you can have garbage, you can have a lot of garbage, a lot of things on the land, but that land is not defined because there is nothing built on it. So any type of plant can actually grow on it. So you can have so many things on the land. That's the same way memory actually behave. So this x does not have value, but there's a space on the memory, and the space does not have value, so you have to assign value before you display what is in that memory. So if you don't assign values, you're going to be getting undefined values, because these values are just random memory values, and this is actually a proof that memory is never empty. So I'm going to type that memory is never empty. It's never empty. It's never empty. So there's always something in that memory, just like land. Land is never empty. There's always something on that land. You can actually see, trees. You can see trees. You can see bush, but it's never empty. So there's always something on that land, and you can have animals. You can have so many things, but you can't see land that's empty. So land is never empty. Also, memory is never empty. So if you declare memory, if you book a space on the memory, or if you reserve a space on that memory, if you don't put values in that memory, you're still going to get values, but that values is going to be garbage. It's going to be undefined values. So this is what we call variable declaration. And now, what is variable initialization? So I'm going to talk about that. Variable initialization. So if I type something like this, int x, something like this is variable declaration. Then this one is called variable initialization. So this is variable initialization. So what happens is that you book a space here, you book a space that can actually store numbers, which is integer. Now you just put 5 inside the space. That's what happened. So you just put 5 inside the space, and that's why we call it variable initialization. That's why we call it variable initialization, because now you've just initialized the variable. So this is what happens when you don't put values after variable declaration, which is this. If you don't put values, what you're gonna get is going to be undefined values. So you're going to get garbage. So you're not going to get, it's not that there's nothing there, it's not that you're going to get zero, because some people, they actually think if you write something like this without putting values, then the value of x is going to be zero. Now compiler doesn't do that. It does not put zero because you've not initialized the variable. What happens is the variable is just going to have different values, undefined values. That's what actually happens. So in my next video, we're going to be talking more about this, and we're going to talk about specifiers, and we're going to talk about scanf, printf, and we're going to talk about operators. So please subscribe to this channel, like this video. See you guys later.